Welcome to the #1 spot health and wellness practitioners go to double their current income and turn their 10-hour work day into a 10-hour work week. Join us as we dive into the tips, tools, and tech you need to create a life and practice on your own terms. More freedom, flexibility, fulfillment, and of course, funds. It's time to build your online practice. And I'm your host, Michelle Rogers, also known as the WELLthy Woman. Be sure to subscribe for your weekly dose of education, inspiration, and action. Let's get started. Really pivotal in helping me to nail down my brand. She has some really cool tactics and strategies to just like, I don't know. I know we've talked about like over the past couple of days, we've been talking about wanting to feel seen, heard, and understood. That's how your clients and patients want to feel. And like, that's how I felt like with Kaye, like 100%. I was like, oh, she gets me. It was just like so awesome to like working with you was just like such a great experience. So I just wanted to like, thank you.
Thank you. I'm a words of affirmation girl, so I'm just over here.
Love languages. If you guys don't know about love languages, check them out. So this session today, this morning, or this afternoon, wherever you guys are, is called Stand Out Online with Brand Archetypes. And so Kaye Putnam is a psychology-driven brand strategist for entrepreneurs. Kaye's been working with entrepreneurs worldwide for more than 10 years, helping them develop and grow their business using her signature Clarity Code framework. She's been featured in numerous popular media outlets and podcasts, including Everything is Teachable, On Brand, Just Branding, Boss Babe Society, The Strategy Hour, Pivot Podcast, and more. She believes in pursuing audacious dreams and genius lives inside every entrepreneur. When you have a clear brand, your clients love, respect, and are willing to pay premium prices for your work, and it gives you the clarity and confidence to scale your impact and income. I love that you have clarity and confidence because I always say like clarity leads to confidence. And like that's so freaking true. So Tara just said, I love Kaye's archetypes. I'm a magician. Yay. We already have fans. That's so good. Yeah. So I guess, Kaye, the first thing I've been asking everybody is like, one, do you work virtually right now? Like, do you work from home or while you're traveling?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, period.
All of the yes. I started my online business when my husband was traveling every 2 years. So I got into this by necessity. And I'm so grateful that I am now because it's forced me to create this business that supports this very flexible lifestyle. So yes.
Yes. Are there particular, like maybe 1 to 2 big struggles or like obstacles you run into, like being able to work online? And are there a couple things that you're just like, oh my God, I freaking love this so much? Like pros and cons of working online.
Mostly pros, at least in my experience. I am such a big believer in flexibility and agency, being able to create your own reality. And I think having an online business or practice gives you that ability. So I am just such a huge proponent of location independent businesses that are built online. The other pro that I love about it is that you get to put your best self out into the interwebs, out online, and the right people will respond. And there's an abundance of clients that are perfect for you. And you get to work with them because we have this wide reach of a worldwide audience. So those are my favorites. Mm-hmm. And then cons are just, I miss humans. Like I want to give you like a big hug right now, Michelle. So there's definitely human contact missing in my life, but I try to, when COVID and that stuff isn't happening, I try to travel as much as possible to get that humanness.
Yeah. Essential. Like it's absolutely essential. I love that. Yeah. And I love what you're saying about like, there's so many people out there. And like, the cool thing about it is I mentioned this yesterday at the end of my talk, I think, it's like practitioners need to be a beacon, right? Like they need to actually like magnetize these people because there's people out there who are really seeking them. Like they're desperately seeking practitioners, and it's up to us to really shine and to stand out. And I think brand strategy is such a big part of that. So you're really helping practitioners do that. So thank you. All right, so let's dive in. Are you ready for some questions?
I am. Let's do this. Let's geek out about all things branding.
All right. Yeah. All right. So many entrepreneurs think that branding is purely about design. How do you approach building brands?
Upside down and inside out. So in the exact opposite way, I think that we get so caught up, especially when that word brand comes up for the uninitiated. It reminds us of color palettes and logos dance through our heads. And that really is just the tip of the iceberg. We have to figure out who we are at our core first so that we can express ourselves in a way that's in alignment with that. I always like to say that we want to build your brand on truth, not trends. So it's not just going out and like pulling in a bunch of random good idea fairies or whatever is pulling to you in a moment. It's getting really intentional and doing the inner work that it takes to be your best self in the world and figure out what that looks like.
Yeah. Yes. All of the things. Yes. So curious, why focus on branding? Why focus on that instead of social media, advertising, other marketing tactics?
I came into this world with a marketing undergrad degree. So when I got started, I was 100% focused on campaigns and the different platforms that you're showing up in, the copywriting and all of those good things. And I had to learn this lesson a few times, unfortunately. Maybe I'm a slow learner, but both in a traditional marketing agency and then later in a digital marketing agency, I noticed that we would run a campaign that had quote unquote best practices. Like we were following the right amount of frequency, we were getting the right amount of impressions, all of those good things. And for some businesses, it worked amazingly. But for other businesses, it didn't. Like the ROI was terrible. And me being really sensitive and like feeling a lot of ownership over some of these clients that I worked with, I was like, I have to get to the bottom of this. This is not acceptable to be giving advice around marketing if it's not going to work for everybody. So I realized that the brand was underneath and it was the thing that was driving the success or the lack of success for different marketing campaigns. So you have to start there. Marketing is still a crucial part of activating your audience and getting people into different programs and offers that you have, but the brand is underneath it.
Yes. I want to circle back to something you said, like the truth over trends and how like the brand is really reflective of who you are as a person. And I guess one of the things that I I'll let you answer it, but like what stage do you think is best for people to start looking at branding? Because like, I think what you were saying and something that I learned as well is like, I had to really know who I was to be able to tap into that brand, right? And I think that's kind of what you get into as far as like archetypes, which I think is super, super cool. Like, again, like as functional practitioners, I think we love patterns and trends and like constitutions and like, and I think as people too, we kind of like boxes, like we like them, but we don't. Like we have this love-hate relationship, right. But I think it can be so helpful to really kind of at the very least give us a starting point or like a jumping off point. So let's talk about archetypes. How do you find out what yours is and how do you use it?
Yeah. So the earlier that you know what your brand archetype is, I think the better. There's these different phases in a brand's development. There's the early stage where you're in this kind of like experimental teenage awkward stage where you're trying out a bunch of things with the sole purpose and the sole goal of validating your offer in the market, like just getting sales, getting people in the door so you can start to have real conversations with real humans. I think it's important to start to know who you are and what you stand for as early as possible so that you can build authentic relationships with those early people. But the place where I find where people get the most return on investment is after you've had some of that initial success, you figured out how to sell some of your basic offers. you are getting a better sense of who you like to work with, and you're starting to find your own voice in the market. I think when you're just getting started, it's a lot of experimentation, and that's part of the process. I don't know very many people that can skip that messy part of building a brand right in the beginning.
Yeah.
I try to help as much as possible, right? To speed up the process, but there is still a bit of just soul work that happens in the middle. That said, the brand archetypes are a really great shortcut to understanding who you are. The way that I grew up, like my past, I was always trying to answer that question, who am I really? Like I found myself being the chameleon in a bunch of different situations. In like family life, I was 1K in running for my cross country team. I was Captain K. For my nerdy self, I was in like math counts and doing this like really geeky stuff on the side. And I didn't have a clear identity. So when I came into the online world, I did what I think a lot of people do is they start looking at other people and be like, oh, maybe I should be like that. Maybe I should be like that. And then thankfully, I just through this rabbit hole of internet leaks found this concept of brand archetypes, which is really old. Carl Jung talked about it in his books. It's been modernized by Carol S. Pearson and Margaret Mark in some of their books. And I immediately needed to know what my archetype is. The framework that I deal with, there's 12 of them. And each of the 12 stands for universal human values and desires. And we have pieces of all 12 in us, but knowing what your top one or top two can give you a really amazing tool to filter down into your innate strengths and just kind of give you a mirror that isn't so distorted, right? Because like it's really hard to see ourselves clearly as humans in general, always. So if we can have something that reflects back our greatest strengths and even our weaknesses, we can start to use that to build our brand messaging around.
I love that. And can I kind of put you on the spot a little bit?
Yeah. Yes, please.
So you guys, for these archetypes, I personally like my brand archetypes are explorer, magician, and a little splash of rebel, right? So can we just talk about that? Like what that blend kind of looks like, and maybe even like a little bit about explorer, a little bit about magician, a little bit about the rebel or the maverick. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I love this.
Might as well put it into context, right? Like
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It makes it so much more clear. So the Explorer is all about freedom. The big brand that people typically think of is like Jeep. So going out on your own, striking your own path, letting go.
I'm sorry. I have to say, like, I drive a Jeep. Like that's hilarious. I have a Jeep Rubicon. Anyway,
my husband's dream car. Anyway,
I don't even think you knew that. Like, I don't even think you knew that. That's so random.
That's amazing. Yeah. So and this is going to resonate too, because I know more of your backstory, but like dropping society's expectations or like what you think that you have to do, and then finding your own path that brings ultimately fulfillment in a very authentic way. So that's the Explorer. The magician is all about transformation. So the magician uses methodologies and tools either from a higher power or an inner power that creates results so radical that it seems like magic. Again, you can see where the parallels are in your own brand. And then I love that you have that sprinkle of the rebel or maverick, which is all about recognizing what systems are no longer serving people and being willing to break those down or to speak up against them so that new systems or like a new reality can be born and come to life.
Yeah. And I just feel like even as you review it, I have full body chills, like, cause it's so like, it's exactly like, that's exactly the blend that completely resonates with me, like 100%. And so, like I was saying, like having these brand archetypes and like knowing what components to start including into maybe your social media copy or your imaging or the creative or the fonts even that you choose and like the color, like all of the things, like these archetypes help to inform you of the direction. So you're not in this crazy chaotic, like amoebic world of like, what do I do? Like, that looks kind of cool. Maybe I should do that, or like takes the guesswork out and really gives you a framework to start to work with. Katie just said, I just took the quiz. I'm a Sage brand archetype. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. I'm also a sage archetype mixed with magician. Yeah, it's amazing because our brains understand concepts in both patterns. So like we're constantly categorizing. That's how our brain works. And there was a Harvard study that showed that humans make 95% or even more than 95% of our decisions emotionally. So if we're not speaking to our ideal clients on kind of that symbolic emotional gut level, then you're missing out on 95% of the conversation. So we need to make sure that we're bringing back in some of these. They feel kind of a little bit like esoteric or like hard to grasp, but thankfully I've done a lot of the I've taken a lot of the guesswork out for you with the quiz and some of the other resources that I offer that pairs up, like you said, like specific image styles, metaphors, story prompts, colors, fonts that speak to and communicate for each of those archetypes.
Totally. Yeah. It's been the coolest brand experience that I've ever had for sure. And like the one that has felt the most aligned, because you kind of like me, you integrate this like sciencey left brain stuff with like the woo and the magic too. And so it's like, you understand like the energetics and stuff. And it's just like, I don't know, it's like pure alignment basically. So let's talk about just like common branding mistakes that entrepreneurs make online. What have you seen? What are you just like, oh my God, why are you doing that?
Yes. So we already mentioned one, like that tendency to go out and like cherry pick different ideas or like to model success. I'll put this on myself. When I first got started, I was looking at this like athletic entrepreneur. So I started YouTube series called the Monday Morning Kick in the Pants. And then I saw this other entrepreneur who's like super glamorous and living in New York City. So I was like, okay, let me name my process Finding Your It Factor. And then another entrepreneur was like casual and feminine and amazing. So I put copy on my website that was like, hey, bombshell. And it's cringeworthy thinking back to those like early, I'm like, oh, poor Kay. But we don't ever want to try to borrow somebody else's identity because it's never going to be as strong as who you actually are. And the people that we want to work with are smart humans. So they can smell that inauthenticity a mile away. So stay away from that desire or that comparisonitis game that happens where you're trying to like pull in what other people are doing to dictate what you should do. That's one. Second one that I see, especially in businesses or models, industries where you're not selling like marketing services or you're not selling business coaching, I think that there's a tendency or a reaction to just be like, oh, like you go handle this. Like people hire a marketing VA or a marketing human to run their marketing for their business, which is logical. However, you can't outsource vision. So you can't just give the entire vision and positioning and personality of your brand to somebody else because it's going to be an expression of them instead of an expression of you. So as the CEO of your business, it's really important that you first sit down and detail what this vision is for your brand, what this strategy is going to be underneath all of the marketing, and then set standards so that every single person that's being your brand in the market on behalf of you. So VAs, social media people, copywriters, all of those different types of humans that are amazing. We want to keep them all in this singular direction, singular vision. So it's important that the CEO does that work in the upfront.
Yeah. Wait. Now you can hear me.
Yeah.
I would say like having that vision and also getting just really clear on like what your values are, what your philosophies are, like what do you stand for? What do you stand against? Like really getting clear on who you are and what, like you were saying, your authentic voice is. I feel like that's key to the branding process because otherwise you can't like, I don't know. It's like you can't really identify if that's actually you. You're still doing that comparison thing unless you're like really embodied, like in who you are and like how you do things. And so I know that was super, super important for me. Like when Kay and I first started working together, I remember us both saying like, we've had our eye on each other for like, I don't even know how long it had been. Like we had been like watching each other. Yeah. Like over a year and a half or something, but it wasn't the right time. Like I knew that I was going to work with her. I just didn't know when. And it was like, I had to go through this, but really, I mean, it was like a personal development journey. It was really getting to know myself and like making sure that I was super solid on where I wanted to focus my time and energy and what my messaging was and who I was serving and like all of that stuff. But, I did feel like I had to go through, like Kay said, it's like, it's kind of hard to avoid that like kind of chaotic era. Maybe it's a short time, maybe it's a little bit longer, but it's like once you're past that, once you've kind of gotten out of that awkward pubescent stage of business growth, then you can dive into something like this, which is just like, I think so powerful, because I think it really just brings everything together and like consolidates everything. And then you have this beautiful package that you can just like, oh, I can give this to my copywriter. I can give this to my online business manager. I can give this to my VA. I can give this to everybody on my team so that we're all on the same page. We all know like what the vision, the mission is. Like we all like know what the look and feel and vibe and voice is, so that it creates this really awesome cohesion. And so like when Kay put together all of my branding stuff, I have this document, this living document, which is also super cool, where I literally just give people a link and I'm like, here's my brand stuff. Like if I'm doing Facebook ads or like whatever. And a lot of times when you start hiring people like contractors and things like that, a lot of them want to spend like an hour or two, like asking you the same questions that you've been asked like 10 other times. And you're just like, I literally don't have time for this. Like, here's my brand guide. It has everything that you need. Like, please just look at that. It has saved me. So just having that resource has saved me so much time. Like, yes. Who are you serving? Like, how are you serving them? Like,
exactly. And good on them for asking. But yeah, there's a way to do this. There's a more efficient way for sure.
Totally. Like 100%. Yes. Oh, amazing. Wow. We're totally ahead of time. I would say you guys, if you have questions, answers, if you want to take the quiz and let us know what your brand archetype is, that could be super cool too. But I don't know. Do you want to talk about the sage archetype? Because that's what you said you were, Kay. And then maybe people can get a little more of a feel for like who you are.
Yeah. So I'm primary sage, secondary magician. So we share the magician, which like we said, is about transformation. Apple is kind of the quintessential magician. On the other hand, sage is the teacher and the mentor. So it is the person that has, the massive bookshelves. It's a pursuit of truth, a pursuit of universal truth. And it's the type that's really interested in facts. So interested in having proven systems and teaching it to other people most often. The cool thing about archetypes is, like, even though I'm an online educator for most of my business, like I sell online courses, so it's kind of natural that I would be the sage. It doesn't have to be that correlated. So even if you're in the health and wellness space, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are the caregiver archetype, for example. You just heard from you, Michelle, that you are the explorer and the magician. So we get to find our own expression within our industry, or even in spite of our industry. It's much better to stand out with messaging and language and images and symbolism that's different from what everybody else is doing. And I feel like the archetypes can be a really powerful tool for that. I can share just really quickly the list of the rest of them as well. If you think that would be helpful.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. So I think people would love that.
Yeah, I wrote it down. So I have it like in alphabetical order, being the sage that I am.
Of course.
So, we have the caregiver, which is like Campbell's soup. Creator, which is like Sharpie markers or Legos. Entertainer, or the jester, which is like Old Spice lately. Explorer, like we said, is Jeep. Girl or guy next door, which is like Wrangler jeans, or like that Charles Schwab, that kind of thing. We have Hero, which is the like Nike, Under Armour. Innocent, which is like Whole Foods, or Johnson & Johnson. Lover, which is like Haagen-Dazs ice cream. I love analyzing ice cream brands, by the way. We have magician, which we talked about, maverick, which we talked about a little bit. Harley Davidson is kind of the typical example. And then royal, which is kind of like Rolls Royce, and then sage finally. So those are the 12. And I'm sure even just hearing the names, you start to get pulled intuitively towards those roles that you've played for your entire life. And then we do have a quiz that can help you narrow down to your top archetype and give you a bunch of resources that are related to it.
Yeah, Kara put the link to the quiz in the chat box.
Amazing.
So
Amazing.
so good. I have a question for you before we dive into audience Q&A. But one of the questions that I get asked a lot, I guess, is it essential to have professional photography, professional videography for your website, for your social media profiles? Like, what's your opinion on that?
Mm-hmm. I am slightly biased because in another lifetime, I was a photographer. So when my first business that I started at 16 was being a photographer. So I have an inclination to just hire the photographer, that it's going to like give you really high quality images. But I don't think that it's necessarily the professionalism that's important. It's being intentional. Images and videos are such a massive opportunity to tell parts of our brand story. I have very intentionally put every piece of my background behind me so that whenever I'm showing up on video or showing up on my webcam, that I'm telling little pieces of my brand story, whether you're like aware of it or not. A lot of this understanding happens on a subconscious level. Same thing for images. We can choose to express a specific story with the props that we're doing, with the setting that we do, with the clothes that we wear, the colors that we wear. All of those are opportunities to tell pieces of your brand story. So I think it's 100% possible to do that just with your iPhone or just with whatever resources that you have available to you, as opposed to hiring somebody. But hiring somebody gives you really magical results too.
Yeah, for sure. I would 100% agree. So cool. Okay, cool. Do you want to dive into Q&A?
Yes, let's do it.
Or is there anything else? That Yashika got hero archetype?
Amazing. Yeah, I can speak to the hero a little bit. So the hero is the one that has a really strict code of ethics and is willing to stand up for people that can't speak up for themselves. Like, you are the metaphorical knight that goes out and slays a dragon on behalf of the damsel in distress. So I love hero brands because they are so service oriented, but they at the same time have really strong boundaries and ethics and just strength in the way that they work. So I love heroes.
Yeah, cool. Oh, she says, I have tears. Thank you.
Oh. Amazing. Oh, I love this work because I feel like it gives us permission to be ourselves. Sometimes people will get some of the archetypes that are not as traditionally valued in our patriarchal system that we live in. So like some people get like the caregiver or the innocent. They're like, oh, really? But as they lean into it and as they read more, they're like, I never realized that was a strength. I didn't realize that was something that people desired from me. And I think that is one of the most magical things that can happen, is just giving yourself permission to lean into those strengths.
Yes. You couldn't have said that better. And later, last session of the day today, I'm really going to be talking about like showing up in the online space and really shining with your own unique special sauce. And this is such it's so key because, as you can imagine, when you are really aligned with who your archetype is and where to put your time and energy and focus and all of that, the people who are looking for you can find you so much easier. It becomes very obvious whether or not it's in alignment to work together. And like, that is the power. Like, that is like the really cool stuff. And I think it's absolutely essential in the online space when so many people, so many practitioners, and I know I was there early on too. And it's like, you're trying to put out this content or whatever, and you just feel like you're screaming into the abyss of the unknown. And you're just like, is anybody listening? Like, I don't even know, like, what is happening out here. And so this can just really help to like consolidate that message and bring people into your space. So
yeah. One of the thing that drew me to you, Michelle, when I was watching from afar, like not in a creepy way, like in a loving way. I think that you have always been so good about walking your own talk and being a little bit unapologetic about your beliefs and sharing those strong point of view statements and messages and stories with the world. I think that's such a great, you literally walk your talk and live by example. And I love that about you.
Thank you.
I think that people can learn a lot from that. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You ready to dive into questions?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. Carrie says, what advice would you give to someone like me who is a bit social media shy?
Ooh, yes. I have a love-hate relationship with social media, to be honest. I think that the most important thing to do when it comes to social media is to shift your perspective and to ask yourself, what sounds like the most fun? What would my 7-year-old self just get a kick out of doing? Like, is it speaking? Is it being on video? Is it creating your own video? Is it designing graphics? Like how could you show up in a way that is the most fun for you specifically? I think that the best way to do social media is in whatever way is most natural to you. And sometimes you have to kind of experiment with different platforms and different strategies to see what ultimately is going to be the best fit for you, but don't stop looking until you find that, because as leaders, we need to show up. We need to create more than we consume. You just have to find the way that feels the best for you to do that.
Totally. Yeah. And I would add to that, like, just practice, right? Like it's okay if it's messy, right? And Carrie, she's a graduate of my program, all about taking messy action. So it's just like, dive in there. Like it's not going to be like this beautifully curated, like whatever the first time. And the cool thing is that all that does is show people more of your authentic self, and you can laugh it off and like state the elephant in the room and just be like, well, just after that one up or whatever, and then like just move on. Like everybody's human, right? And that's what we have to remember. And we also have to remember, I think, that it's not about us, right? The more that we shut ourselves down, close ourselves down, like that just prevents us from building the practice that we want to be building, helping the people that we want to be helping, right? And so it's really getting out of our own way and just like doing the damn thing, right?
So well said. Yeah. So well said. Kind of cliche, but focus on the process. Focus on the things that you can control, not the like reactions and outcomes and results and all of those things.
Yes. And Carrie says, love that. Thank you. Messy act is the perfectionist thing. Yes. Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. And Shimei says, I'm the caregiver.
Amazing.
Nice.
Amazing.
Yeah. Where's the quiz, Laura? It's in the chat box. Kara, would you mind posting that quiz one more time? And then the link will be accessible to you there, Laura. Chelsea says, quiz says magician archetype. Awesome. Amazing. So good. Priscilla says, how do you best define the word brand?
So this is one of the reasons why my space is so confusing, because lots of people brand themselves as a branding person and are selling completely different things. So I've seen branding people that just do social media, or branding people that just do some, website design, for example. To me, your brand is this two-part thing. It's knowing who you are and then deciding how you want to express that. That's how I define it.
Oof, beautiful, beautiful and simple. Will you say it one more time? Just so everyone can hear it. I think it's good.
Yeah. So your brand is who you are, and then making decisions about how you're going to express that.
Yes.
Wherever you show up.
Yes, totally. Because then it doesn't matter if it's just social media or like website. It's like, this is across the board, because when you're in the online space, that's another thing that's really important, is having that cohesive look that like, is that the word I'm looking for? Like, it's just like across all platforms, there's this cohesion. Yeah. Like this marriage, this consistency, I guess is the word I'm thinking of too, throughout that. So super important.
Yeah.
Amazing. So Samuel says, Kay, how many levels of engagement do you have available, and what scope do you cover at each level?
Oh, thank you for asking. That's amazing. I have lots of different online courses. My most popular courses are the 12 different courses that I have, one for each of the archetypes. So once you get through the quiz, if you want the deep dive into what your archetype is, that is really accessible price-wise and is a great way to get started. I have other courses that help you build a brand from A all the way till Z. And then more on the level that like Michelle and I work together when people are farther along in the process and are getting ready to scale. I have what I call a VIP intensive, where we, meaning me and my team, take all of the amazing genius out of the visionary's mind, and then we codify it all into what I call a brand source book. And that is that big living document of brand standards. So on one end, we have that VIP intensive. And then on the other hand, we have all of several different courses.
Yeah. Yeah. Super cool. Highly recommend our work. And you also have quiz, no?
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So we've had our quiz. Oh my gosh. I have tried to beat my own quiz in terms of lead generation so many times, and it continues to this day, I think 5 years later, to be our top and least expensive lead generating tool. So finally, after being asked, I don't even know how many times, we finally created a course called Convert with a Quiz that teaches you how to build your own quiz for lead generation. So that's been really popular. It came out maybe like 6 months ago for the first time, and people have been getting really great results creating their own quizzes for lead generation.
So good. Yeah. Yes. Cool. Amazing. So Priscilla says, how do we know when we're ready to work on our brand?
I feel like as soon as you have some of those early results, so you've at least sold an offer a couple of times, and I'm speaking from the perspective of businesses that are either in the service-based industry, in the information industry, or those types of things. If you're an e-commerce brand, you have to do it in a different order because you have to actually like design the product and get the product in before you can even start to sell it. So know that I'm speaking to that perspective. And I know that a lot of you are in the business of services. So as soon as you have just some of that initial confirmation that what you're selling is something that people will buy, and you're getting to the point where you want to get intentional and essentially increase your momentum and to sell to more people, to scale up your messaging, and that's a really good time to start thinking about your brand. So it's more of a momentum builder than a momentum starter.
I would agree.
Is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I would agree as well. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Like, and to add to that, I would say, don't let this prevent you. Like, if you're not ready for this step, like don't let this prevent you from moving forward. I think that's really 100%. Important to highlight here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I depart from a lot of other branding people where I actually encourage people to wait a little bit, like just get some of that experience. And again, those conversations underneath your belt so that you can start to form opinions that you'll be expressing.
Yeah. And just to give you guys some perspective too, like, Kay, how long ago was it that we did end up working together? It's been a few months. It's been a few months. I don't know, maybe a few months. Maybe like 6 months,
maybe
something like that. But like we said, like I had my eye on her for like a year and a half. And I was like, I know I need to work with this woman. I know I need to work with this, but it wasn't time yet because it wasn't that I didn't have a product. It wasn't that I didn't know that my product worked or anything like that, like my wealth mentorship, but it was like, I wasn't quite at the point where it was like, I knew almost like myself in and out, like inside and out, and was really embodied in the work that I was doing. And so it was like, yeah, I don't know if that's making sense to you guys, but it wasn't quite right. It wasn't the right timing yet. But when it was, like, it freaking was, like, it was time. And like, I just like dove in. And so, yeah, that's like,
yeah, 100%. Cool. And part of my job is to help you get to that clarity, but there has to be raw material for us to work with or to sort through. So you have to have just data points, if you will, that we can kind of like pick through and decide on what we're going to focus on.
Totally. Yeah. And I would say too, like, start with the quiz, right? As like a jumping off point. And as you like refine your own approach and really start to embody the work that you're doing in the offer and know who you're speaking to and all of that stuff, your archetypes might also change and shift a little bit too. Would you say that's true, Kay?
Yeah, especially as you get through the messy, pimply
the pubescent,
years.
Yeah, totally. The weird, awkward phase. Yeah,
totally.
Exactly. So funny. Cool. Nicole, I see that you have your hand raised. Go ahead and ask your question. Okay. It looks like you asked your question in the chat, in the Q&A, which is awesome. So Laura has the next question here. Where did these archetypes come from and how did they come about?
So our brains are built to recognize patterns. And there's something that Carl Jung, the psychologist from the 60s, defined as the collective unconscious. It's basically things that are so timeless, they're cross-cultural, and they're things that we recognize because we're human. We understand them. It's a shortcut to understanding. So he started talking about archetypes, and I actually have the black books right behind me here from him. Of course. But the names that I use in my particular work and that I've been building off of were defined by Carol S. Pearson and Margaret Mark in their book, The Hero and the Outlaw, which probably is maybe like it has to be more than that because my quiz is that old, 10 years, 15 years old, something of that nature. And then my work has really been centered around how can I make this accessible, usable, and just something that small business owners can plug into their business, because the biggest agencies, the biggest brands in the world, they've been using this for decades. Nike's known about archetypes for decades. It just hasn't been translated down to the small business level in a really great way. So I've been making that my life's work to help do that.
Yeah. Beautiful. Sandy asks, my brand is caregiver, which is spot on. Should I be concerned about the martyr aspect? Any suggestions?
So like any good superhero, our strengths are also our weaknesses, no matter which archetype that you are. And being the caregiver, the edge that you have to play on is that tendency, or that I think tendency is maybe the best word, but the risk of becoming a martyr, like being too much of the caregiver. So we evolve. I think that there's maybe like shadow sides of each of the archetypes. And then as we continue to mature and evolve, we find the most, struggling for words, but just the best expression of each of those archetypes. And the best way to be the caregiver so that you're still helping people is actually to bring in some of those boundaries and to guard yourself and to make time for your own caring for yourself, so that you have the space and the energy and the capacity to go out and continue to serve others and to care for others. So yeah, every archetype has its own version of that. And that's absolutely the weakness or the shadow of the caregiver that you have to be careful of.
Yeah, great question. I just saw Shimei had a comment. She said, yes, so we have the power to decide how we're going to express ourselves. I'm scared of being the caregiver because I have the people pleaser tendency, but now I can see I can decide how to show my caregiver personality, which I think is really cool. Yeah, totally. Tara says, do you feel that we have to have a presence on all the major social media platforms, or that we're better off picking one or two that have a function or a purpose aligned with our branding or marketing goals, especially if we're just getting started?
Oh my gosh, I feel exhausted just hearing that question.
And just FYI, also so you guys know, we do have Daphne Cohen coming on later to talk about all like social media, like all social media. Yes. So don't feel super pressured. Like you can answer whatever feels aligned for you, Kay.
Yes. Yeah. So Daphne might have a different answer. Mine is, I am a huge proponent for building up systems and sustainability in my business. So the way that I'm on as many platforms as I am at this present moment is because I've built templates and standards and batching days and team and automation into this process of showing up, especially when you're just getting started. I think it's very wise to focus your energy on a single place, maybe on two places. That's just my personal experience. Spreading yourself too thin isn't going to keep you in your power, and it's not going to be the best way to serve and impact with your genius. So
100%, 100%. And inside of my mentorship, I also talk about this. And it's like the one platform that you choose or the two platforms that you choose are really dependent on who it is that you're serving. Where are they hanging out? Like that's where you want to put your energy, right? If you're, look at the demographics of the different social media platforms, like is your perfect client hanging out on TikTok? I don't know, maybe, but like if they're on TikTok, they're probably not on LinkedIn, right? So it's like, you have to figure out who you're serving because that's going to determine where you should be showing up. Right?
Yeah.
And Nicole says, do you help people create quizzes, personality type or not, to help collect more email addresses?
Yes. So that course that I mentioned earlier, Convert with a Quiz, is built to walk you through every step of my process for doing that. And there's actually a VIP option where we can work one-on-one to help you do that. The key, if you're thinking about a quiz for lead generation, is that it's not just the quiz. The two pieces that people often miss are generating intellectual property behind the quiz so that it's actually an asset for your brand. So making it useful enough and valuable enough that people are going to enjoy taking it and get something out of it, get some result from the quiz. And then there's a whole funnel that happens after the quiz that converts somebody just from just general quiz taker into somebody that's interested in your offers and your services. So make sure you're paying attention to the whole journey that somebody goes on.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be making a quiz with Kay very soon.
I'm so excited.
Christy says, a quiz as a lead gen is an excellent idea. That course on how to set up is listed on your website.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
It's in the menu and in the footer. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. And Kay's website is in the chat box too. Great question. And then Tony says, if you could only choose one social media platform for the health and wellness industry, what would you use?
Again, I wouldn't make this decision based on industry. I would make it based on where you feel called to show up. And again, like Michelle was saying, where your ideal clients are. If you're solving for a particular health issue or like focusing or niching in on a specific issue or type of person, look for where that person naturally shows up. I will say I prefer platforms that, and this is just totally Kaye Putnam. I look for platforms where if I create something once, it's not just going to disappear in 24 hours. That kind of drives me nuts. Like I want to have my work have like life beyond just the first day that it's posted. That's totally my personality. Other people love just the ease and the casualness of showing up, like say on Instagram stories, where it is very temporary. So just ask yourself what best suits your lifestyle, your business, your temperament, your personality, and focus on the platform that best fits that.
Yeah, for sure. And again, where your potential clients are hanging out, like that's what's key, right? It doesn't make any sense to put a bunch of time, energy, and effort into a platform if your ideal clients aren't hanging out there, right? So this is where like market research comes into play and all of that kind of good stuff. So good question. And any other social media questions, I would also say Daphne's coming on later. So definitely save those up. So Heidi has a question. I really enjoyed doing the quiz. Super fun idea. I don't have a sense how this could fit for naturopathic medicine practice website. Could you talk about this?
Yes. One of the most important roles or jobs of our brand is to elevate our business beyond being a commodity. So we don't want to be just another naturopathic practitioner or service provider. We want to have a larger story, a larger mission and emotion behind our brand that's going to attract the right clients to us and repel the wrong ones. So the archetypes give us a clue about what our personal story is. And there's these universal stories that show up in movies, in TV shows, in our families, in our own relationships that we can lean on because they've been proven over thousands of years of being human that we resonate with these specific themes or these specific metaphors. So it can be a really great way to stand out because you're not just talking about your product or just talking about your service. You're talking about a larger meaning behind it. So again, my archetype is primary sage, which is all about knowledge. So I can really speak to the desire to know, like the clarity aspect. I use the word clarity a ton because people want clarity around their brand. It's not just the things that make up a brand, the colors and the logos and the things. We're speaking to this desire for clarity and for knowledge. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, feel free to clarify your question or ask again, Heidi, if not. I hope I'm saying your name right. She said, or they said, my brand came up as royalty, aka ruler, executive, sovereign. How does this fit in regards to our client?
Yes. So the archetype, and this is a common question. I'm so glad that this was asked. Our archetype is who we are. And the reason why this is important is because if you think about your group of friends or just the people that you know in your life, we gravitate towards people who are very certain about who they are. We might not be the same personality as them. We might not even agree with everything that they say, but that certainty is magnetic. So we don't even necessarily need to know the archetype of our clients because they might be any one of the 12. What's important is we know who we are so that we can convey a clear message to the market. And the royal is all about living by example. It's about the more successful that you become, the more successful your entire kingdom or community becomes. And it's the one that has unapologetically high standards. So royal is super fun.
So good. Thank you. And it's Alina. Thank you so much. Yeah, super, super good. And I think that's so important. What you're saying too is like the clarity and like the magnetism of the certainty. And that's the key is like, and I'm going to be talking about this later in my session, is that certainty, that authenticity, that transparency is what is magnetizing. And that is what's going to bring in your ideal clients or patients. Yeah. And this framework gives you such a cool place to get started and really start identifying that. Yeah. Samuel says, I noticed I really had to ponder the quiz questions before making a selection. Is this an indication of a problem I have? Anyway, the quiz shows that I'm a sage archetype.
Typical sage experience. If you think about it, it's like, which one is the correct answer? Let me weigh all of the options. It sounds like you got the right archetype. I mean, it's part of personality, right? So like some of us are really like quick, intuitive people. And then sages in particular, we tend to be very much in our heads and like second guessing things. So yeah, it sounds like you did it exactly correct and you got the right answers. But whichever way, like if you happen to know exactly like immediately which answer is right for you, that's perfect. Or if you just need to like read through and weigh your options, that experience of taking the quiz is absolutely correct as well. So yeah,
so
I
cool.
love that. Such a good example.
Tony says, if we are in the beginning stages of starting a company, the messy process you spoke about, is there a benefit to book some time with you now, or should someone wait until they are further along in their business? Do you do hourly consulting?
I do hourly one-on-ones with any of my course students. And typically for people that are in the beginning stages, I think that DIY or more self-service types of experiences are perfect for you. I think you can get a outsized return on investment for things like lower cost courses. So I have my entire branding process in a course that you can go through on your own, which is much less expensive than working with myself and my team individually. And you can pair it with some like 30 minutes or 90 minutes of one-on-one time. I think that that's probably the best compromise where you're still getting a direction and you're getting the tools and the insight, but you're not investing so much money before you get through that stage.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, good. Lots of different options. Heidi says, This is my follow-up. So yes, love the archetypes for me and understand my branding. I was asking about this as a lead generator for her practice. So maybe some examples of like what, I don't know, some types of quizzes that these people might have on their website or something like that, that would be more applicable to, say, their clientele or their patients.
I get it. That makes so much more sense. Thank you for clarifying. Yes. So quizzes are beautiful for answering any complex question that you answer as an expert. So in the health and wellness space, people might have answers about, this is a bad example, forgive me, but like, what supplements should I take? And you could potentially have a quiz that helped them decide that. Terrible example. A better example might be something like, what is my health and wellness personality? Just as a generic start here. But the magic that you could include at the end of that could direct people towards maybe like specific morning routines, or maybe some people are super crunched on time. So you're going to give them really time focused, like easy to implement things, where other people are really focused on energy, and you can point them in the direction of either product, services, or resources that help them improve their energy. Maybe other people are really interested in, I don't know, longevity. So you could point them towards more content or resources in that area. So quizzes work really well to either help identify like a style. So a personality style, a style of diet, a style of making decisions, or just a way of approaching life, or a strategy. So helping people decide what step to take next can be a really great use of a quiz. So hopefully that starts to spark some more ideas.
I think that's great. And one thing that came to mind too for me was like maybe what body system like needs the most care and love. And it's like which body system could need some help, and like maybe adrenals come up. So then it's like the follow-up could be around like some lifestyle or nutritional modifications that they could make based on like helping their adrenal support. But then it's also all about positioning, right, yourself as the expert. So it's like, okay, you gave them some cool tips and tricks and all that. Now they're curious about diving deeper. So it's what they call like a top of funnel sort of strategy to get people booking calls with you or to sign up with you. So awesome. Yeah. Heidi says, she said, yes, perfect. Thank you for these great ideas. Of course. Heidi says, Michelle mentioned that she might like to do this for her work or practice. And I'm wondering if this course you offer could be relevant for me. I'm more of a traditional ND, not promoting myself as a personal coach. I can see how that approach, an archetype quiz would be super relevant, helpful. Yeah. So I think we just answered that for you, right, Heidi? Yeah, hopefully that was great. So, wow, so cool. We have like, okay, she said yes. Awesome. So we have like 4 more minutes. Does anybody else have any questions? Samuel says, this is fun. This is so helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
People are loving this. Yeah, super, super, super fun. Any last minute questions? We've got like 3 more minutes. Or Kay, do you have any like last minute? Oh, Paulina says, any recommendations for quiz generators to use?
I personally use one called Try Interact, which I've had nothing but really great experiences with. I started maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Originally, I started with a different quiz platform. And when I switched to Try Interact, my conversion rate, so from start to actually getting an email address, tripled. So they've just been really excellent at conversion rates. They are a paid service though. So I believe that there's other options if you do some more research that may be free, or like free up to a specific number of email addresses, but I'm currently using Try Interact and loving them.
Great. And then Yashika says, I need help creating a quiz for my patients. I'd like to create programs for my patients and create a quiz to place them. Sounds like Kay's your lady, awesome. Yashika. Amazing.
I appreciate that.
And then Priscilla says, how do we follow you? I love that question.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Priscilla. I am a good online marketer and I should be pretty easy to find, but I am most active on YouTube. I love YouTube. I almost alluded to this earlier, but I love YouTube because it can, the content that I create there lives on and on and on, even years later. So there's tons of free insight and intel there. And then I'm also on Instagram. So you can find me Kaye Putnam on Instagram.
Perfect. And I think your YouTube link will be on one of the, either your website or your Instagram too. So people can kind of dig around and find you there. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Heidi says, loved this. I feel your authentic enthusiasm for this work really inspires me. Thank you.
Thank you.
What was the quiz generator called again?
The actual like software? Was that the question, Michelle?
I don't know. It says quiz generator.
Okay. If it's the software, it was called Try Interact.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Someone put it in the chat box. Thank you. And then Tony, one last question. So Tony says, if you purchase an archetype course, but find after diving in that we may have chosen wrong, can you switch? And how would that work?
Yes. So 2 options. I believe on all of the sales pages, and particularly if you're thinking about purchasing an archetype course, I recommend going through the webinar that's on my homepage called The 3 Keys to a Crystal Clear Brand, because you'll get a bonus offer at the end of it for the brand fluency archetype courses. There's also an offer to book a 15-minute call with my team to help you hone in on what your top archetype or top 2 archetypes are. So that's a offer that we do for free. So you can take us up on that 15-minute call if you aren't sure. And then we have had people that have needed to switch after, and you would just get in contact with our team and we could help you out with that.
So good. Yeah. Oh, this was such a fun session. Thank you so much, Kaye.
Thank you so much for having me. I had the best time, and everything that you do is just so high quality. And I so appreciate being included in this. Thank you.
Likewise, thank you. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Have a restorative rest of your weekend. And we're going to be chatting soon. I know it. So
sounds good. Bye.
See ya. All right, that's a wrap for today. If you want the exact breakdown of how I help practitioners go from their first 5K to consistent 50K months with just 2 offers, 10 hours per week, and an audience of less than 500 people, be sure to click the link in the podcast description or head to wealthywoman.co/breakdown. To make sure you don't miss an episode, be sure to subscribe. And for daily online practice insights, follow me on Instagram at wealthywoman.co. Let's create your life of wealth, full of abundance, purpose, health, wealth, and joy.